Poor Girl Billionaire. A struggling girl meets a millionaire who changes her life forever. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to Stories TH, your go-to spot for incredible millionaire stories. Today, we have a truly inspiring tale that's going to make you believe in the power of persistence and self-belief. And just a heads up, grab your popcorn, because you'll want to stay till the end for the surprising twist. Before we dive in, if you're new here, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Stories TH so you never miss out on more amazing stories like this, Lily's simple life. Lily had always known what it felt like to struggle. Living in a small, cramped apartment in the heart of New York City, she didn't have much except for her dreams. She worked 2 jobs to make ends meet: a receptionist at a local law firm during the day, and a waitress at a cozy diner in the evenings. It wasn't glamorous, but it was enough to survive. Every morning she would wake up to the smell of stale coffee and the sound of her neighbors arguing. She'd drag herself out of bed, tie up her hair into a messy bun, and brace herself for another grueling day. But Lily wasn't bitter about her life. She had something most people didn't, an unshakable belief that one day things would change. That one day, she'd have the chance to live a life beyond the struggles, a life of comfort and freedom. It wasn't an impossible dream, she thought. She could feel it in her bones. Little did she know that her life was about to take a sharp turn, a turn that would shatter her carefully constructed world. It all started one chilly evening, at a high-end charity event she was reluctantly forced to attend. Her best friend had begged her to come along, knowing how Lily had always rolled her eyes at anything remotely luxurious. Lily had never been a fan of the wealthy elite, and to be honest, she had never understood the appeal of events where people wore designer clothes and sipped champagne in crystal glasses. But that night, something was different. As soon as she stepped into the grand ballroom, she was overwhelmed by the glittering chandeliers, the hushed whispers of the rich and powerful, and the palpable air of affluence. She felt out of place, like a fish in an ocean full of sharks. Despite her discomfort, she couldn't help but feel intrigued by the people around her, their polished smiles, the way they moved with such confidence, as if they owned the world. She clutched her drink tightly, wishing the night would pass quickly. And then she saw him, Vincent Carver. He was standing across the room, talking to a group of businessmen, exuding an effortless charm that drew the eyes of everyone in the room. With his sharp suit, perfectly tousled hair, and piercing blue eyes, he looked like he had just stepped out of a magazine. A self-made billionaire, he was known for his philanthropic efforts, his empire in tech, and his aloof, mysterious personality. But it wasn't just his wealth that made him stand out. It was the way he moved through the room, commanding attention without saying a word. Lily tried not to stare, but her eyes kept drifting back to him. She didn't understand why she was so captivated. Maybe it was his confidence. Maybe it was the way he seemed untouched by the world's troubles. But something about him stirred something deep inside her, a longing she didn't fully understand. That night, fate seemed to intervene in the most unexpected way. Lily, feeling more out of place than ever, tried to make her way to the restroom. As she walked, she accidentally bumped into someone. Her heart skipped a beat as she looked up to see none other than Vincent Carver standing before her, a slight smirk on his lips. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she stammered, quickly adjusting the drink in her hand. Vincent raised an eyebrow, his smirk deepening. "No need to apologize. It's a crowded room." For a moment they just stood there, a strange silence hanging between them. Lily could feel her cheeks flush under his intense gaze. The room seemed to fade into the background as she tried to find something to say. I didn't expect to see someone like you here," she blurted out before she could stop herself. Vincent's smirk widened, and he took a step closer. "And what exactly do you mean by that?" Lily froze. She had no idea why she said that, but the words were already out. Her heart raced in her chest and she prayed for the ground to swallow her whole. "I didn't mean it like that," she quickly added, trying to recover. "I just don't really fit in here." Vincent's eyes softened and he chuckled lightly. "Well, neither do I." Her eyebrows furrowed in confusion. "But you, let's just say, he interrupted. "I'm here because of a friend. And honestly, the only thing I'm looking forward to tonight is getting out of here." Lily blinked, surprised. This self-made billionaire, surrounded by the wealthiest people in the room, wanted nothing more than to leave. Before she could respond, he gave her a small, almost imperceptible smile. "I'll tell you what, how about we make a deal? I'll get you out of here, and you'll tell me all about why someone like you doesn't belong in a place like this." Lily blinked, unsure whether to laugh or run, but something about his offer felt oddly reassuring. She nodded, albeit hesitantly. "Okay, deal." And just like that, her world so carefully built on routines and small comforts started to shift. What began as an accidental bump in a crowded ballroom would set the stage for a series of events that would turn her life upside down. Bonding through struggles. Lily had no idea what she was getting herself into when she agreed to Vincent's unexpected offer. As they stepped away from the noise of the ballroom, she felt the tension in her chest slowly loosen. She had thought this evening would be just another night of feeling out of place, but somehow she was beginning to feel seen. Vincent led her through the maze of corridors, away from the glittering crowds. The deeper they walked into the building, the quieter it became. They finally reached an outdoor balcony with a stunning view of the city skyline. The night air was crisp, and Lily took a deep breath, feeling both out of place and strangely at ease. "This is better," Vincent said, his voice surprisingly soft. "The chaos of those events always makes me want to escape. I guess you could say I'm not really cut out for the high society life." Lily turned to him, surprised by his openness. The billionaire didn't seem like someone who would have a problem with such a glamorous lifestyle. "Really?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. "I mean, you're Vincent Carver. You practically own this city." Vincent's lips quirked into a wry smile. "I own a lot of things, but not everything I want." Lily raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "And what is it that you want?" He hesitated for a moment, staring out at the skyline. "I guess I want to be real, not just a face on a billboard or a name in the news. I want to feel like I'm more than just the money, the power, all of it. But it's hard, you know? People only see me as the guy with everything. They don't see the person behind the image." Lily nodded slowly. She couldn't relate to his wealth, but she understood what he meant. She'd always felt like she was living in the shadow of other people's expectations. People expected her to stay small, to settle for less, to remain invisible. But that wasn't what she wanted. Just like Vincent, she yearned for more. "I get it," she said quietly, her voice softer than usual. "People only see what they want to see." Vincent turned to her, his gaze intense but kind. "Exactly. But tonight, I feel like I'm seeing something real. Someone who doesn't care about who I am on paper. Someone who's just being themselves." Lily's heart skipped a beat. Was he talking about her? She had to remind herself that this wasn't some fairy tale. He was a billionaire. She was just a girl who could barely keep up with her rent. But for some reason, in that moment, she didn't care about the differences between them. They talked for hours, the conversation flowing effortlessly as the city lights twinkled below them. It wasn't about the wealth or status, just two people, sharing stories and laughs. Vincent talked about the pressures of being in the public eye, the loneliness that came with being constantly surrounded by people who wanted something from him, and the struggles of finding someone who truly understood him. Lily shared her own story, her life growing up in a small apartment, the years of struggle, and the desire to break free from the confines of her circumstances. As she spoke, she felt a sense of relief she hadn't realized she needed. For once, she wasn't just the waitress or the receptionist. She was Lily, the girl who had dreams, the girl who could see a future outside of the hardships she faced. But as the night wore on, reality began to creep back in. Lily knew that despite the connection they shared, they were from two completely different worlds. Vincent's world was one of luxury and excess, while hers was one of survival and determination. She didn't belong in his world, and he didn't belong in hers. The thought made her heart ache, but she pushed it aside. After all, she wasn't some naive girl who believed in fairy tales. When the night came to an end, Vincent called for a car to take them back to their respective lives. As they stood outside the venue, he turned to her, his expression unreadable. "You know, I think this is the first time in a long time I've actually enjoyed myself at one of these things." Lily smiled, a little breathless from the intensity of the night. "Me too. Thanks for showing me a different side of things." Vincent looked at her for a long moment, his gaze lingering. "You're not what I expected, Lily, but I'm glad I met you." The words hung in the air between them, charged with an unspoken tension. Lily's heart fluttered, but she quickly suppressed the feeling. She had to remind herself that this was just a night, a fleeting encounter in a world she didn't belong to. As the car pulled away, Vincent watched her go, his thoughts swirling. He didn't know what it was about Lily, but something about her felt different. Something about her made him want to be more than just the man everyone expected him to be. As for Lily, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. The night with Vincent had stirred something deep inside her, a longing for a life she never thought possible. But she couldn't allow herself to get too carried away. She knew better than anyone that dreams like this didn't come true for people like her. The next morning, Lily went back to her ordinary life, but her mind kept drifting back to Vincent. She couldn't stop thinking about the conversation they had shared, the way he had opened up to her. How real he seemed. It was almost as if he had shown her a glimpse of something beyond the struggle, beyond the daily grind. But she knew it was just a fleeting moment, and that was all it would ever be. After all, how could someone like her ever be a part of someone like him? But life, as it often does, had other plans. Little did Lily know, this was only the beginning of a much deeper journey, one that would change everything she thought she knew about love, wealth, and herself. A complicated connection. The days after that night felt strange to Lily. She went back to her routine, diving into the monotony of her daily life. But something had shifted. Vincent Carver's face kept popping up in her mind, his words echoing in her thoughts. It wasn't just his wealth or his charm that had left an impression on her, it was the vulnerability he had shown her, something she didn't expect from a man like him, a man who had everything, or so it seemed. Despite the connection they shared that night, Lily couldn't help but feel like it was all too good to be true. She was just a girl from a small apartment with no connections. And Vincent? Well, Vincent was a billionaire tech mogul with a world full of opportunities and expectations. She knew better than to think that something as simple as a conversation could change their worlds. But no matter how hard she tried to push him out of her mind, he lingered. Then, 3 days later, she received an unexpected message. It was a text from Vincent. "I know this is sudden, but I'd really like to see you again. There's something about you that I can't quite shake." Lily's heart skipped a beat as she read the message. She quickly pushed away the mix of excitement and doubt swirling inside her. She was just a girl, right? But there it was, an invitation to step into a world she knew she didn't belong to. Her fingers hovered over the screen, unsure of what to say. She typed and deleted a response several times before finally settling on something simple. "I'd like that. But are you sure? I mean, I don't want to complicate things for you." Vincent's reply came almost immediately. "I'm sure. No complications. Just two people seeing where this goes." There it was again, the simplicity of his words that made it feel so real, so unguarded. Lily took a deep breath and agreed. She didn't know what it meant, or what it would lead to, but she couldn't ignore the pull between them. Maybe it was the hope of something more, or maybe it was just the excitement of stepping into the unknown. The following evening, they met at a quiet, upscale restaurant that Vincent had chosen. It was an intimate setting, with soft lighting and a sense of quiet elegance that made Lily feel like she was in a dream. When Vincent arrived, he looked even more striking than she remembered. His suit, the way he carried himself, he exuded an air of confidence that was impossible to ignore. "Lily," he greeted her with a warm smile, "I'm glad you came." She smiled back, trying to ignore the flutter in her stomach. "I'm glad too. It's been an interesting few days. They were seated at a small table in the corner, the low hum of conversation around them making everything feel surreal. The waiter brought them drinks, and as they clinked glasses, Lily realized that this felt strangely normal. Despite everything, despite the wealth and the fame, this moment felt like two people sharing a simple evening. "So," Vincent began, after taking a sip of his wine, "how have you been since we last spoke?" Lily hesitated before answering. She didn't want to seem too eager or too detached. "Same old," she said, then added with a light laugh, "Just trying to make sure I don't burn my toast in the morning." Vincent chuckled, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "I get it. Life doesn't slow down for anyone." Their conversation flowed easily, and for the first time in a long time, Lily felt at ease. It was strange she should have felt out of place, considering the lavish surroundings, but instead, she found herself laughing and enjoying the company of a man who seemed to genuinely care about her. As the evening went on, the conversation took a deeper turn. They began talking about their fears, their dreams, and the things that kept them up at night. Lily shared how she had always wanted more than her current life, more than the struggle of working just to survive. She wanted freedom. But as she spoke, she realized just how different her world was from Vincent's. He had the means to chase his dreams without hesitation, while she had to fight for every inch. Vincent listened intently, his expression soft. "I think we all want freedom," he said. "But sometimes it's about more than money. It's about finding people who understand you, people who don't see the wealth, but see you for who you really are." His words lingered in her mind long after they had finished dinner. Was that how he saw her? As someone who understood him, not just the billionaire persona? It was almost too much to hope for, but at that moment she couldn't deny the connection between them. They had shared something real, something deeper than just a fleeting encounter. After dinner, Vincent offered to drive her home. As they made their way to the car, the air between them was thick with unspoken words. The tension was palpable, and for a moment, Lily wondered if this was all just some fantasy, something that would eventually fade when reality set back in. But when Vincent looked at her, there was no hint of that. His gaze was steady, his hand lightly resting on the small of her back as they approached the car. "Lily," he said softly, "I know this is complicated, but I don't want to run from this. I don't want to run from you." Lily's breath caught in her throat. Was this really happening? Was he really saying what she thought he was saying? "I don't want to run either," she whispered back, her voice thick with emotion. As the car pulled away, Lily's heart raced. She knew they were walking into uncharted territory. There were bound to be complications, obstacles, and challenges. They came from different worlds, and their connection would never be easy. But for the first time in a long time, Lily felt like something real was happening. And maybe, just maybe, she could allow herself to believe in it. The road ahead wasn't clear, and the uncertainties loomed large, but she couldn't ignore the feeling in her chest. Something had changed, and there was no going back now. Part 4. The world they're about to enter. The days after their second meeting felt surreal to Lily. Every moment she spent with Vincent seemed to blur the lines between the life she knew and the one she had only dreamed of. They had texted back and forth, and every conversation seemed more meaningful than the last. What had started as a casual connection had slowly evolved into something neither of them could ignore. But despite the warmth she felt from Vincent, Lily was still reluctant to fully believe in their budding relationship. She was constantly torn between the excitement he stirred in her and the reality that they came from two completely different worlds. There were moments when she would catch herself, remembering the life she led before her tiny apartment, her unglamorous job, her friends who couldn't fathom what it would mean to even step into Vincent's world. She didn't belong there, yet Vincent kept showing up. He invited her to dinner, he texted her good morning, and most importantly, he seemed to want to be with her not just because she was part of his charm the world strategy, but because he actually enjoyed her company. That was what made the whole situation so confusing. One evening, Vincent invited her to his penthouse. Lily hesitated for a moment before agreeing. The idea of being in his world, his carefully designed, breathtaking penthouse, felt like a leap into a reality that was so far removed from hers. She had no idea what she would say or do in such a lavish space, but there was no denying that part of her wanted to see it, wanted to experience the world he lived in, even if only for a night. When she arrived at the building, a sleek, towering structure in the heart of Manhattan, Lily felt a familiar knot form in her stomach. She looked at herself in the reflection of the building's glass doors, jeans and a simple blouse, her hair in a ponytail, nothing like the women she imagined had ever stepped foot in Vincent's world. Her phone buzzed in her hand. It was Vincent. "Come on up, I'm waiting for you." Lily took a deep breath and walked into the building. The elevator ride felt like 100 years, each second weighing heavier than the last. When the doors opened, she stepped out into the penthouse lobby. The view was stunning, the city lights stretching out as far as she could see. She followed the hallway to a door that opened smoothly as soon as she reached it. Vincent stood there, wearing a black t-shirt and jeans, looking effortlessly at home in his high-end apartment. "You made it," he said with a warm smile. Lily managed a small smile, but inside, she was fighting a mixture of awe and anxiety. "This place is incredible," Vincent chuckled. "You're surprised?" "A little," Lily admitted, glancing around at the high-end furniture, the art on the walls, and the perfect lighting. "I mean, this isn't exactly what I'm used to." "I get it," Vincent said, stepping aside to let her in. "This world doesn't come naturally to most people. But tonight, you're just Lily. No expectations." That was the thing about Vincent. He always made her feel like she wasn't just the girl from the diner or the receptionist. She was just Lily, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like that was enough. They spent the evening talking over dinner, sipping wine, and laughing as they exchanged stories. Lily was amazed at how effortlessly they clicked, how natural everything felt. It was like they were just two people, sharing a quiet, comfortable evening together. She even caught herself forgetting that they lived in different worlds until a comment from Vincent made her stop and think. "I have a lot of people I work with," Vincent said casually, his fingers swirling the wine in his glass. "They're good people, but at the end of the day, they only care about what I can give them. I don't have a lot of people I can just be myself around." Lily took a sip of her wine, her gaze fixed on him. "I can't imagine what that must be like." "It's exhausting," Vincent admitted, his eyes searching hers. "And honestly, that's why I like spending time with you. I don't need to put on a show. You see me, not the billionaire, not the CEO, just me." Her heart fluttered in her chest. This wasn't the first time he had said something like that, but hearing it again, hearing it so openly, made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she could do this. She could be in this world with him. But as the evening wore on, doubt began to creep in again. As much as Vincent said she didn't need to be anyone other than Lily, she knew that the difference between their worlds was undeniable. There were expectations. Of course there were. People like Vincent didn't stay with people like her. They didn't fall in love with people who didn't fit the mold. After dinner, Vincent led her to his rooftop terrace, and they sat on the edge, gazing at the sparkling lights below. The night air was cool, and Lily wrapped her arms around herself, trying to calm her racing thoughts. "Lily," Vincent said, breaking the silence, "I've been thinking about what you said, about us coming from different worlds. I know it's complicated. I know people will judge us, but I don't care." Lily's breath caught. "Vincent, we don't just come from different worlds. We're in different leagues. You have everything: wealth, influence, opportunity. And I barely make it through each month. I don't belong here. Not really." Vincent turned to her, his expression intense. "You're wrong," he said softly. "You belong with me. That's all that matters." Her heart pounded as she looked at him. "But can we make it work? Can we bridge this gap between us? I mean, is it even possible?" He reached out and took her hand, his touch steady and warm. "It's not going to be easy. Nothing worthwhile ever is. But I'm willing to try if you are." In that moment, Lily felt a rush of emotions. She wanted to believe in what he was saying, to believe that love could conquer the differences between them. But fear still held her back. What if this was just another dream she'd wake up from? What if she was just a passing distraction for him? Yet, there was one thing she knew for certain. She couldn't ignore the connection they shared, no matter how impossible it seemed. She looked up at him, her heart aching. "I'm scared, Vincent. Scared of getting hurt." He squeezed her hand gently. "We'll face those fears together. But for now, let's just be here. Let's see where this takes us." For the first time, Lily allowed herself to believe just for a moment that maybe, just maybe, their love story could defy the odds. The tipping point. The next few weeks passed in a blur, each day weaving together moments of doubt and hope. Vincent and Lily's connection deepened, and while there were times when she felt herself being swept up in the whirlwind of his world, there were also moments where the overwhelming difference between their lives made her feel small. Vincent seemed to care more than anyone ever had before, but Lily couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't truly part of his world. She didn't belong with someone like him, not really. They spent more and more time together, and with each encounter, the lines between who she was before and who she was becoming started to blur. Vincent took her to galas, charity events, and exclusive dinners, all of which made Lily feel like an imposter. She was a small-town girl trying to navigate the world of luxury and power, and the glaring contrast between her life and Vincent's never seemed more apparent. Yet every time she saw Vincent, it was like the world faded away. He made her feel seen, heard, and valued. It wasn't the wealth or the expensive dinners that drew her in. It was the way he looked at her, the way he genuinely cared about her thoughts, feelings, and dreams. He saw something in her that no one else did. But as their relationship grew, so did the challenges. Lily wasn't naive enough to believe that a relationship between someone like Vincent and someone like her would be easy. There were whispers. People in Vincent's circle started to notice her, some with curiosity, others with judgment. At every event, Lily felt the eyes on her, the whispers behind her back. Some were kind, but most were dismissive. The questions lingered in the air. What was she doing here? What did she have in common with someone like Vincent? One afternoon, as Lily sat across from Vincent in his penthouse, a heavy silence hung between them. She had come to realize that they were reaching a crossroads, and she wasn't sure how to navigate it. "Vincent," she began, her voice unsteady, "I can't help but feel like I'm not what you need. I'm not what your world needs." Vincent raised an eyebrow, confusion flickering across his face. "What are you talking about? You're everything I need." Lily shook her head, fighting back the emotions that were rising inside her. "You say that, but I don't know if I believe it. I'm not like you. I don't have your connections, your wealth, your influence. I can't just slip into your world the way you do. I feel out of place." Vincent leaned forward, his expression serious now. "Lily, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You're more than enough." "But I'm not," she whispered, her heart heavy. "I'm not enough for you, Vincent, and I'm not enough for your world." Vincent's gaze softened as he reached across the table, gently taking her hand. "Lily, I know this isn't easy, but I care about you. And I don't care about your wealth, your background, or your status. I care about you." She looked down at their joined hands, feeling the weight of his words, yet the unease in her chest refused to dissipate. "I don't know if I can keep doing this. I don't want to hold you back. I don't want to be the reason your world gets messy." Vincent's grip on her hand tightened. "You won't hold me back, Lily. This is not a game. This is real." Lily took a deep breath, her mind racing. Could she really stay in this relationship, knowing the consequences? Could she live with the judgment from others, the whispers, the doubts about her place in Vincent's life? "You don't understand," she said, the tears threatening to spill. "It's not just about us. It's about everything. The world we live in is so different. I'm scared of what might happen if we keep going like this." Vincent sat back in his chair, his eyes never leaving hers. "What are you afraid of, Lily?" "I'm afraid of losing you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm afraid that I'll be the one to ruin everything, that I'll never be enough for you." Vincent's face softened, and he stood up to walk around the table. He stood in front of her, his hands resting on her shoulders, his gaze searching her eyes. "Lily, listen to me. You are more than enough. You've always been enough, and I don't want to lose you." She looked up at him, her heart aching. "But what about everything else? What about the judgment, the people who will never understand?" Vincent took a deep breath. "Those things will always be there, but I can't control them. What I can control is how I feel about you, and I know how I feel. I want you in my life, Lily, not just for now, but for always. I'm not asking you to change who you are. I'm asking you to trust me, trust us." Lily stared at him, her heart torn between the fears that gripped her and the love she had for him. She had always wanted more from life: freedom, independence, a love that was real. But she had never imagined it would come with so many complications, so many challenges that made her question if she was strong enough to face them. "I don't know if I can," she said quietly. "I don't know if I'm strong enough to live in your world and still be me." Vincent smiled softly, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "You don't have to do it alone. We'll figure it out together. No one else matters but us." Her breath caught in her throat. His words were everything she had wanted to hear, but the doubt still lingered. Could she really accept his world? Could she let herself love him without feeling like an outsider? For a moment, the room felt heavy with uncertainty. But as Vincent stood in front of her, his presence steady and reassuring, Lily realized something. Love wasn't about fitting into someone's world, it was about building one together. And maybe, just maybe, they could make it work. "I want to try," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I want to try, Vincent. But we have to take it one step at a time." Vincent's smile widened, his eyes lighting up with relief. One step at a time. Together. For the first time in weeks, Lily felt a weight lift from her shoulders. It wasn't going to be easy, and there would be many obstacles ahead. But in that moment, with Vincent's hand holding hers, she felt like they had a chance. Maybe, just maybe, their love story could be the one that defied the odds. Part 6. Facing reality. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind, with each day bringing new challenges. Lily and Vincent, despite the growing connection between them, still struggled with the reality of their relationship. Every time they stepped into the world of the other, they were reminded of the barriers that existed between them. Barriers that, no matter how much love they had, could not be easily overcome. Vincent had kept his word. He was patient with her fears, with her doubts, but there was a tension in the air. They had started to spend more time at his penthouse, and Lily's initial awe of the luxurious space was gradually replaced by a sense of discomfort. It wasn't because of the extravagance. Vincent's world, as lavish as it was, no longer fazed her. What made her uncomfortable was the unspoken expectation that came with it. The expectations of the people in Vincent's circle, the society that surrounded him, the way they regarded her as something less. She wasn't someone who grew up with money. She didn't know how to act around the elite, the ones who had everything handed to them. It wasn't just the wealth that made her feel inadequate. It was the way people looked at her. Those fleeting moments when their eyes would skim over her, full of judgment, as if to say, "What is she doing here?" Lily had tried her best to ignore it. Vincent had reassured her countless times that she was more than enough. But the doubt continued to nag at her, constantly whispering in the back of her mind. One evening, they attended an upscale gala, one of the many that Vincent had invited her to. The event was a high-profile charity affair, and Lily could tell that every eye in the room was on them. It wasn't just because they were a striking couple, it was because they were an odd couple. A young woman who didn't quite fit the mold of the typical socialite, and a tech billionaire who was the center of attention in every room. As they made their way through the crowd, the whispers started. It wasn't loud, But Lily could hear the faint murmurs of disapproval, the subtle glances, the raised eyebrows. She felt her stomach knot with unease. Vincent noticed immediately. His hand tightened around hers, and he leaned in to speak softly. "Don't listen to them. They don't matter." But the words didn't ease the discomfort in her chest. She couldn't help but feel like a fish out of water. She didn't belong in this world, not really. Throughout the night, she tried to keep her composure. She smiled, engaged in polite conversation with the guests, but every moment felt like a performance. She couldn't shake the feeling that people were scrutinizing her, waiting for her to slip up. After dinner, Vincent noticed that she had grown quiet, the spark of her usual lightness dimming. They stepped outside onto the balcony for some fresh air, and Lily leaned against the railing, staring at the city below, trying to collect her thoughts. Vincent followed her out, standing beside her in silence for a moment. "You're quiet," he observed, his voice gentle. Lily didn't immediately respond. She could feel the weight of her emotions threatening to spill over. Finally, she turned to him, her voice low. "Vincent, I don't know how to keep doing this. I'm constantly fighting this feeling that I don't belong in your world. The way people look at me, the way they talk about me when you're not around. It's too much." Vincent's expression softened with concern, and he reached for her hand, gently pulling her toward him. "Lily, I told you from the beginning, you don't need to fit into anyone's world but your own." "I know," she said, shaking her head. "But it's not just about fitting in. It's about the pressure, the feeling that I'm not good enough. I'm just a girl from a small apartment, and you people see you as this perfect, untouchable man. I don't know how to be with someone like you. I don't know how to be in your life without feeling like I'm standing in the way." Vincent's heart ached at the rawness in her voice. "Lily, you're not in the way. You're with me, and that's all that matters." She looked up at him, the vulnerability in her eyes breaking his heart. "I don't want to ruin everything we have, but I can't ignore how different we are. I don't belong here, and I don't know if I can keep pretending that I do." For a moment, Vincent said nothing. He just held her, letting the silence stretch between them. He knew this wasn't just about the glances or the whispers. It was about something deeper, something that was making her question their future. Finally, he spoke, his voice firm but tender. "I won't let you feel like you don't belong. This isn't about fitting into my world. It's about us creating a world of our own. You don't have to be perfect, Lily. You don't have to be anything other than who you are." "But I can't keep pretending that it's okay," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm scared that one day you'll wake up and realize that I'm not the one for you." Vincent pulled back slightly to look at her, his hand cradling her face. "Lily, listen to me. I know this isn't easy, and I know there are things about our relationship that make it complicated, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm here with you. You're not just someone I'm with because it's convenient. I care about you, the real you, not the things you think you're lacking, not the stuff that others see. Just you." She took in his words, her heart torn between the desire to believe him and the fear that she was out of her depth. "I don't know if I can believe that." Vincent sighed deeply, his thumb gently wiping away the tear that had slipped down her cheek. "Then believe this. I'm not letting you go. We'll face whatever comes together. I won't let you go through this alone. But you have to trust me, Lily. Trust that I'm not going to let anyone or anything tear us apart." Lily looked at him, her heart pounding. Could she trust him? Could she let go of her fear and believe in something that felt so fragile, yet so real? For the first time in a long while, Lily allowed herself to imagine a future with Vincent. It wouldn't be easy, nothing in life ever was, but maybe, just maybe, they could face it together. "I'll try," she whispered, her voice trembling but filled with hope. "I'll try to trust you." Vincent smiled softly, pulling her into his arms once again. "That's all I need. We'll take it one step at a time, Lily. We'll make it through together." As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Lily felt something shift inside her. The fear was still there, but so was something else. Hope. And for the first time in a long time, she believed that maybe they could build a future together, no matter how complicated it seemed. When the world gets in the way. The weeks that followed felt like a delicate balancing act. Lily and Vincent were making it work more than that. They were beginning to create something beautiful. Yet, as much as they tried to focus on each other, the world around them refused to stop intruding. The challenges weren't going away. They were intensifying, and Lily was beginning to feel the weight of it all. Vincent continued to be everything she needed: supportive, patient, understanding. He was her rock, but even the strongest rocks erode over time. The whispers, the judgments from the outside world, were slowly wearing her down. She knew Vincent was used to the spotlight, used to the public eye, but she wasn't. And every time they walked into a room full of people, it felt like they were walking straight into a storm. At first, she tried to brush it off. She would smile through the uncomfortable glances, ignore the sideways looks and the hushed conversations. But as the days passed, it became harder to pretend like it didn't bother her. One afternoon, after a particularly exhausting event, Lily was sitting alone in Vincent's penthouse, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. It had been one of those days where everything seemed to be going wrong, where every glance felt like an accusation, every conversation felt like a reminder of how out of place she was. She hadn't seen Vincent since the event ended, and the silence in the penthouse was oppressive. She heard the door click open, and Vincent's voice called from the hallway. "Lily?" "I'm here," she responded, her voice quiet as she sat on the edge of the couch, staring out at the city lights. Vincent stepped into the room, immediately noticing the way her posture was slumped, the way her energy felt low. He could tell something was wrong. He moved to sit beside her, resting a hand on her knee. "What's going on? You've been distant tonight." Lily hesitated, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. "I don't know if I can do this anymore, Vincent." The words hit him like a punch to the gut. "What do you mean?" "I can't keep pretending it's okay. I can't keep pretending that I don't feel like I'm drowning in your world. Every time we go to one of those events, every time I see the way people look at me, I feel like I'm not enough. I'm not like you. I don't fit into your world." Her voice cracked, and she fought back the tears threatening to spill. Vincent's heart tightened. He had always known there would be obstacles, but seeing her so vulnerable, so broken, made him feel like he was failing her. He moved closer, gently cupping her face in his hands. "Lily, listen to me. You are enough. You are everything I need, and I don't care about what other people think." "But you should care," she whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "This isn't just about us. It's about what the world expects from you. You have your career, your empire, your reputation. I'm just a girl from a small town who doesn't know how to navigate this world." Vincent shook his head. "I don't care about any of that. What I care about is you. I've told you this before. I'm here with you, Lily. This isn't about your background or where you come from. This is about what we share. You are the one I want, not the world, not the expectations." She looked down at his hands, the warmth of his touch soothing her, but it wasn't enough to calm the storm inside her. "I want to believe you, Vincent. I really do. But it's hard. It's so hard to ignore what everyone else is thinking, what they're saying behind our backs. I don't know how to be in this relationship without feeling like I'm constantly fighting the world." Vincent sighed, his voice softening. "You don't have to fight alone. We're a team, Lily. I know it's not easy, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to let anyone make you feel like you don't belong." Lily closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. She wanted to believe him, but the doubt lingered. She had always been the one to fight for what she wanted, to struggle and survive. But this was different. She wasn't sure how to fight for love in a world that seemed so determined to pull them apart. "I just need to figure out how to navigate this," she said quietly, her voice full of uncertainty. "I need to learn how to be in this without losing myself." Vincent nodded, understanding the depth of her struggle. "And you will. We'll figure it out together. one step at a time. And if it gets too much, we'll stop. We'll take a break from everything, from the events, from the pressures. Just you and me, no one else. The sincerity in his words washed over her like a wave. She looked up at him, feeling the weight in her chest ease just a little. Do you really think that's possible? To just block out everything else? Maybe not all the time, he admitted. But when it matters most, yes. We can take it slow. We don't have to rush. I want you in my life, Lily. Not the version of you that fits into some perfect mold, but the real you. And if that means we have to fight the world, then so be it. I'll fight with you. Lily's heart fluttered at his words. She had never felt so seen, so cared for. Maybe, just maybe, this could work. Maybe they could build something together without sacrificing who they were. I'm scared, Vincent, she whispered. I'm scared that I won't be able to handle it, that I'll lose myself in this. Vincent's expression softened, and he pulled her into a tight embrace. I'm here, Lily. You're not alone in this. You never will be. For a long moment, they just sat there, holding each other in silence. The city outside buzzed with life, but inside, there was a quiet peace between them. Lily felt something shift inside her, a sense of resolve, a flicker of hope. She didn't have all the answers, and she didn't know how they would face the challenges ahead. But one thing was clear, she wasn't ready to give up on them. I'll try, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I'll try to make this work. For us. Vincent smiled softly, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. That's all I ask for. One step at a time, together. And in that moment, surrounded by the city that never slept, Lily felt a glimmer of hope for the future. It wouldn't be easy, and the world would always try to tear them apart. But with Vincent by her side, she knew she wasn't alone. Together, they could face whatever came their way. The test of strength. Days turned into weeks, and life between Lily and Vincent began to settle into a new rhythm. They were still facing the challenges that came with their vastly different worlds, but there was something about the way they worked through it together that made all the difference. Each time Lily felt overwhelmed by the judgments or the expectations that surrounded them, Vincent was there to reassure her. And when Vincent was weighed down by the pressures of his empire, Lily was his refuge, a quiet reminder of what truly mattered. They began to carve out their own space, a place where they could be themselves without the eyes of the world upon them. Vincent took her on spontaneous getaways, trips that were quiet and private, where they didn't have to play the part of the perfect couple in front of everyone else. It was during these moments that Lily began to let go of the fear that had gripped her for so long. In the solitude of those small escapes, she was able to remember who she was, who they were together, not defined by money or status, but by something real, something simple. But life was never quite that easy. Just when they thought they had found a sense of peace, something always seemed to disrupt it. The world had a way of intruding, whether it was the relentless media, the expectations from Vincent's family, or the silent pressure from his business associates who questioned the sincerity of their relationship. The whispers grew louder, and the judgment more pointed. Lily tried her best to ignore it, but it wore her down more than she cared to admit. Each day was a delicate balance between staying true to herself and fighting the urge to retreat from the world that she didn't feel part of. One evening, as they attended another high-profile charity gala, the weight of it all hit her like a ton of bricks. The moment they entered the grand ballroom, the energy shifted. All eyes were on them, but not in the way Lily had hoped. People were whispering, eyes darting from her to Vincent, their gaze lingering longer on her than on him. She felt the stares, the quiet speculation. It was as if they were watching her every move, waiting for her to slip up, to prove that she didn't belong. Vincent noticed the shift immediately. His hand found hers, squeezing it gently. "Ignore them," he said quietly, as if trying to reassure her, but Lily could feel the frustration building inside her. "I can't," she whispered back, her voice tight. "I can't keep doing this. I can't keep pretending that I'm okay with being the center of their gossip." with their judgment. Vincent looked down at her, his expression soft, yet firm. Lily, you don't have to prove anything to them. You're with me because I want you by my side, not because of what they think. But as they made their way through the room, it became increasingly difficult to ignore the tension in the air. They were constantly watched, scrutinized by people who seemed determined to find flaws in their relationship. The spotlight, which Vincent was so accustomed to, felt suffocating to Lily. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was an outsider, that she would never truly be accepted into this world. The gilded walls, the expensive champagne, the perfect smiles, none of it felt real to her. And worse, she was starting to believe that maybe Vincent was just another piece of this world, a world that valued appearances more than authenticity. The doubts, which she had worked so hard to suppress, began to creep back in. The evening dragged on, and by the time they left, Lily felt emotionally drained. Vincent could sense her discomfort, the quiet sadness in her eyes, and he was more than willing to give her space. But as they reached the car, something in Lily snapped. She pulled her hand away from his, her voice trembling as she spoke. "I can't do this anymore, Vincent," she said, the words spilling out before she could stop them. "I can't keep pretending that I'm okay with how this is. I don't belong in this world. I never will." Vincent's face fell as he processed her words, a mix of confusion and concern crossing his features. "Lily, what are you talking about? We're doing this together. I'm not asking you to change who you are." "Then why does it feel like I'm drowning every time I step into your world?" she shot back, her voice rising. "Why does it feel like I'm constantly fighting to fit in, to prove that I'm enough? I can't keep pretending that I'm okay with all of this, Vincent. It's too much." Vincent took a deep breath, trying to calm the growing frustration inside him. He didn't want to argue, didn't want to push her further away, but the pain in her eyes was unbearable. "I never asked you to be anyone but yourself. You don't have to change, Lily, but we can't keep running away from the reality of our situation. We have to face it together." Lily shook her head, her tears falling freely now. "I can't keep pretending that I can handle this, Vincent. You've spent your whole life in this world. You know how it works. You know what it takes to survive in it. But me, I'm not built for this. I don't know how to live in a world that doesn't want me." Vincent stepped closer, taking her face in his hands, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Listen to me. You are built for this. You just don't realize it yet. You're stronger than you think, Lily. I don't want to live in a world where you feel like you don't belong." Lily shook her head again, her voice shaky. "You don't understand. I don't belong with you. I can't do this. I can't keep pretending that we fit together when every part of me feels like an outsider." Vincent's heart ached at the pain in her voice, but he wasn't about to give up on them. He had seen the strength in her, the fire that burned beneath the surface, and he refused to let her believe she wasn't enough. "I understand more than you think," he said softly, brushing a tear away from her cheek. "I understand because I see you, Lily. I see you for who you are, and I'm not going anywhere. If this world is too much, we'll create our own world. But I'm not giving up on us." Lily looked at him, the weight of his words settling in her chest. She knew the doubts weren't gone, but in that moment, she realized something important. Maybe they could make it work. Maybe they could find a way to balance their worlds, to fight the expectations together. She wasn't ready to give up on him, not when he was willing to fight for her. "I'm scared," she whispered, the vulnerability in her voice raw. "But I'm willing to try. I'll try if you will." Vincent smiled softly, his thumb brushing over her lips. "I'll fight for us, Lily, every single day. Together, we can handle anything." For the first time in a long time, Lily allowed herself to believe in that. Maybe they could create their own world, one where love and authenticity mattered more than anything else. The moment of truth. The following days felt like a quiet battle, but one they were both ready to fight. Lily had made a decision she wasn't going to run from this anymore. She wasn't going to let the fear of not fitting in dictate the course of her relationship with Vincent. The doubt was still there, lingering in the back of her mind. But for the first time, she felt the strength to confront it head-on. And it wasn't just about her and Vincent anymore. It was about the future they could create, the life they could build together. Vincent, too, was committed. He was fully aware that their journey wouldn't be easy, but he refused to let the pressures of their differences drive a wedge between them. He knew that the path they were on was filled with obstacles, but he believed in what they had. He believed in Lily. And he believed that their love could survive whatever the world threw at them. As the days passed, they found a rhythm, one that allowed them to live in both worlds, to navigate the high society events without losing themselves in the process. There were still whispers, still people who questioned their relationship, still the occasional sideways glance from those who didn't think they belonged together. But with Vincent by her side, Lily started to see them as noise, background chatter that had no power over her. She was with him because they wanted to be together, not because of the expectations or the pressures from outside forces. But even as they grew stronger, the world had a way of testing them. It wasn't long before Vincent's family began to weigh in. They had always been supportive of him, but the whispers about Lily had reached their ears. It started with small comments, innocent remarks about how Vincent had always been so focused on his career, how his family had hoped he would marry someone who could help him in the business world. It was subtle, but it stung. Lily had heard rumors about what Vincent's family thought of her, and though she had done her best to ignore it, the hurt was impossible to shake. She wasn't used to being judged, to having her worth questioned in such a quiet, insidious way. She knew she wasn't perfect. She was still learning how to navigate this new life, this new world. But she also knew that she wasn't some accessory to Vincent's life. She wasn't just a pretty face beside a billionaire. She was Lily Strong, capable, and worthy of love. The turning point came one Sunday afternoon when Vincent invited her to dinner with his parents. It was one of those moments where everything seemed to be riding on it. Lily knew she had to face them, to prove that she wasn't just some phase in Vincent's life. She wanted to show them that she was more than enough for their son, that she wasn't just a distraction or a temporary indulgence. The dinner was at a luxurious private club in the city, a place where Vincent's family had hosted countless events. The moment they arrived, Lily's heart began to race. The air inside the club was filled with the low hum of conversation, the clinking of glassware, and the polite, well-practiced smiles of the elite. Lily could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on her. Vincent squeezed her hand as they entered, offering her a reassuring smile. "You've got this," he whispered. She nodded, though the nerves in her stomach were anything but calm. She wasn't sure if she was ready for this moment, but she knew she couldn't back out now. They were greeted by his parents in the grand foyer. His mother, a graceful woman with a warm but calculating smile, looked at Lily as if she were trying to figure her out. His father, a stern, reserved man, extended his hand in greeting, but there was an undertone of skepticism in his eyes. Vincent introduced Lily with a sense of pride, but there was a subtle tension in the way his family observed her. They didn't come out and say it, but it was clear they had questions. Lily could feel it, and her resolve was starting to waver. As dinner proceeded, the conversation flowed awkwardly at times. Vincent's father asked about her work, her family, her background. Lily did her best to be confident, answering each question with poise, but the undertones of judgment were unmistakable. She wasn't born into this world. She didn't have the connections, the pedigree. She wasn't part of the elite circle they so clearly held in high regard. It was then that Lily realized something important. This dinner, this judgment, wasn't about her. It was about their own expectations, their desire to see Vincent marry someone who fit the mold. It wasn't about her worth or her love for Vincent. It was about their perceptions of who he should be with. Finally, Vincent's mother spoke, her voice cool but polite. "We've heard a lot about you, Lily. It's interesting to see you in person." Lily's heart skipped a beat, but she forced a smile. "I hope it's all been positive," she said lightly. His mother's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Well, we all have our Surprises, don't we? The tension in the room was palpable. Lily could feel the heat rising in her cheeks. She had tried so hard to be accepted, to prove herself worthy of being in Vincent's life. But she realized, in that moment, that she didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Not to his parents, not to society. She wasn't here for their approval. She was here because Vincent chose her. Because she chose him. Vincent noticed the subtle shift in Lily's demeanor. He knew his mother's words had hurt her, and he couldn't stand the thought of her feeling less than she was. He reached across the table and gently placed his hand on hers, looking directly at his parents. Lily is the person I've chosen to be with. I'm not asking for your approval, but I'm telling you that she's the one for me. I love her for who she is, not because she fits some ideal you have in mind, Vincent said, his voice steady but firm. Lily looked up at him, surprise and gratitude washing over her. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she had to fight for her place. Vincent was fighting for her, and that was all that mattered. The dinner continued in an uncomfortable silence, but Lily didn't care. She realized that the opinions of others, whether from his family, his friends, or society at large, couldn't define her worth. She wasn't here to change for anyone. She was here to be herself, and that was enough. When they finally left the dinner, Vincent pulled her aside in the quiet hallway, his eyes soft. "Are you okay?" Lily nodded, though her emotions were a tangled mess. "Yeah, I think I am." He smiled gently, brushing a lock of hair from her face. "I meant what I said. I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you." Lily smiled, feeling lighter than she had in days. "I'm not going anywhere either, Vincent. Not anymore." Together they walked out of the club, the world still buzzing around them, but this time they were walking side by side, stronger than ever. The breakthrough. The days following that dinner were quieter, but somehow the silence felt like a promise. Lily had learned a lot about herself and about the world she was trying to navigate with Vincent. That night with his parents had been hard. The judgment, the subtle disdain, had left her feeling like she wasn't enough, like she didn't belong. But in the end, it also showed her something vital. She didn't need their approval. She didn't need anyone's approval except Vincent's, and that was all she cared about. Vincent had made it clear that his love for her wasn't contingent on what anyone else thought, and that assurance was more than enough to carry her through the hardest moments. She started to realize that she didn't have to change or bend to fit into a world that wasn't hers to begin with. All she had to do was be herself. As much as she'd love to ignore the pressure, there was still the reality of being in a relationship with someone as high profile as Vincent. The media, the public eye, the constant scrutiny, they were always there, like a shadow looming over everything. But as time went on, Lily began to realize that she didn't have to let it control her. She had the power to choose how much of that world she allowed into her life, and for once, she decided that she would take charge of her own story. One evening, Vincent invited her to one of his business meetings, a major one, he said, for an upcoming deal he was working on. He wasn't sure how she would feel about it, but he wanted her to be there, to be involved. Lily hesitated at first. She had always kept her distance from his business affairs, mostly because she didn't want to feel like an outsider. But there was something different this time. She was no longer afraid to stand by his side, to be a part of this world, even if it was intimidating. She didn't have to understand every business term or strategy. All she had to do was be there for him. When she arrived at the sleek conference room where the meeting was held, she was greeted with the usual polished professionalism that came with Vincent's world. The room was filled with powerful individuals, all dressed in sharp suits and high-end attire, discussing the future of Vincent's tech empire. But as she entered the room, Vincent's eyes locked on hers, and for a moment, the rest of the world seemed to fade. She took a seat beside him at the large table, and despite the formal nature of the meeting, there was a subtle warmth in Vincent's gaze, as if he was silently reassuring her that she belonged there. As the meeting went on, Lily listened quietly. She didn't understand everything being said. There were talks of mergers, acquisitions, and financial projections that flew right over her head, but she didn't feel out of place. She felt included, and that was more than she could have hoped for. It was a small thing, but it meant the world to her. Vincent's colleagues, who had once looked at her with judgment, now seemed to respect her. They included her in the conversation, asked for her opinion on things, and genuinely seemed interested in what she had to say. It was a stark contrast to the cold indifference she had once felt in their presence. After the meeting ended, Vincent walked with her out of the conference room, his hand gently resting on her back. "You did great," he said with a proud smile. Lily smiled back, feeling a sense of accomplishment that she hadn't expected. "I didn't understand half of what was going on, but it felt good to be there." Vincent chuckled, the sound warm and genuine. "You didn't have to understand it all. Just being there means everything to me." They made their way out of the building, walking hand in hand down the quiet city streets. The night air was crisp, and for the first time in a long while, Lily felt truly at peace. She wasn't perfect. She didn't have all the answers, and she wasn't pretending to be something she wasn't. But she was learning to navigate this world with Vincent, and most importantly, she was starting to realize that she didn't need to fit anyone's mold except her own. As they strolled through the streets, their laughter ringing out, Vincent spoke up again. "I'm proud of you, Lily. You've come so far, and I want you to know that I'm not just in this for the good times. I'm here through the tough ones, too." Lily stopped walking, turning to face him, her heart beating faster. "I don't need you to fix everything for me, Vincent," she said, her voice steady, but filled with emotion. "I just need you to be here with me, to be in this with me. That's enough." He looked at her, his eyes full of something she couldn't quite place. Something deeper than love, something that felt like a promise. "I'll always be here. I'm not going anywhere." For a moment, they stood there, just the two of them, letting the world around them fade away. It felt like time had stopped. There were no expectations, no judgment, just Vincent and Lily, together. But as the days passed, they would face more challenges, family pressures, media scrutiny, and the occasional public scandal. However, through it all, Vincent remained by her side. The world could do its best to pull them apart, but they had something stronger: trust, love, and the certainty that they could handle whatever came their way. One evening, not long after their walk through the city, Vincent surprised Lily with a quiet night in. No events, no business deals, just the two of them. They cooked dinner together, something simple and warm, and afterward, they curled up on the couch with a movie. As the credits rolled, Vincent looked at Lily, his gaze soft. "I never thought I'd find someone who makes me feel like I can just be myself," he said quietly. "With you, I don't have to pretend." Lily smiled, her heart full. "I feel the same way. I don't need you to be perfect, Vincent. I just need you to be you." He kissed her gently on the forehead, holding her close. "Then we've got it all figured out, don't we?" She nodded, her eyes drifting closed as she settled into his arms. In that moment, Lily knew she had finally found her place, not in a world of wealth or status, but in a world where love and authenticity reigned above all else. And with Vincent by her side, she knew they could face anything the world had in store for them. The realization. The journey from the uncertainty and doubts of the early days to the comfortable ease they now shared had been a long one. With each step, Lily and Vincent grew closer, learning to navigate the challenges of their different worlds, finding ways to make their love flourish amidst the complexity of their lives. But as much as they tried to stay grounded, the world around them never stopped turning. Challenges came from unexpected places, and even the strongest foundations could be tested. One afternoon, just as they were beginning to feel like they could breathe without the weight of the world on their shoulders, a sudden wave of media attention hit. It started as a simple paparazzi shot, taken as they walked through a park together. It was an innocent moment, just the two of them enjoying a sunny afternoon. But the tabloids saw something entirely different. The headline the next day read, "Billionaire Vincent Carver's mysterious girlfriend. Who is she?" The story was everywhere, from social media to TV broadcasts. The media frenzy was a familiar storm to Vincent, But for Lily, it was like a thunderstorm had suddenly erupted in the calm of her life. For the first time, she felt the pressure of being in the public eye, the whispers, the eyes of strangers, all fixated on her, trying to tear apart every part of her life, every detail of her past. She sat on the couch that morning, scrolling through the endless posts about her, when Vincent walked in. His face was tight with concern, but his demeanor was calm as always. "Lily, don't let this get to you," he said, sitting beside her and placing a hand on her shoulder. But Lily's voice trembled as she turned to him. "They're talking about me, Vincent. About us. I don't know how to handle this." Vincent's hand tightened around hers. "I know it's a lot, but we've been through worse. We've made it this far. You're stronger than you think." "I'm scared," she whispered. "Scared of being judged. Scared of how this will change things between us. I don't know how to deal with being under a microscope. It feels like everything I've ever known is now on display for everyone to see." Vincent sat closer, pulling her into his arms, holding her tightly as if the world outside could be kept at bay for just a moment. "You don't have to face this alone. I'm here, Lily. I'm with you every step of the way." The world, however, wasn't as kind. The weeks that followed saw an increase in scrutiny. Reports dug into Lily's past, sensationalizing her humble beginnings and using them as fodder for rumors. The public couldn't seem to understand how a woman like her, a girl from a small town, a waitress turned girlfriend of a billionaire, could be a real part of Vincent's life. The judgment came fast and fierce, and Lily began to feel suffocated by it. Her self-doubt, which she had worked so hard to overcome, began to creep back into her mind. She hadn't been prepared for this kind of attention. No one ever was. She thought she was stronger than this, but in the face of constant media attention, she began to feel small again, like the world was closing in, telling her that she didn't belong, that their love was a mistake, a fantasy that couldn't survive in the harsh light of reality. One evening, as they sat in the quiet of Vincent's penthouse, she opened up about her fears. "I don't know if I can keep doing this," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I feel like I'm losing myself, like I'm just some character in this story, and I don't know how to be real anymore. I'm scared of what this attention is doing to me, to us." Vincent took her hands in his gaze unwavering. "Lily, this isn't about how the world sees us. It's about how we see each other. You've always been real to me, and that's what matters." "But what if that's not enough?" she asked, her voice cracking with emotion. "What if I can't keep up with this world? What if I'm not enough for you in the way the world expects me to be?" Vincent's expression softened. "You're not here for their approval, Lily. You're here with me because you're the woman I love. Not because of what the world thinks of you, but because of who you are, who we are together." Lily looked up at him, searching his eyes for any hint of doubt. But there was nothing but sincerity there. He wasn't going anywhere. He had chosen her, and in that moment, she realized she had to stop letting fear dictate her decisions. The world was going to be harsh. It always had been. But their love was something the world could never touch, as long as they stayed true to it. "You really think we can make it through this?" she asked, the vulnerability in her voice giving way to hope. Vincent smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I don't think. I know. We've come this far, and we've proven that we're stronger than anything the world can throw at us. And I'll keep proving that every day." Lily closed her eyes, taking in his words. In that moment, the weight of the world felt a little lighter. She didn't have all the answers, and she knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but one thing was clear. Vincent was worth fighting for. Their love was worth fighting for. The media continued to spin their narrative, but Lily stopped paying attention to the noise. Instead, she focused on the love they shared. She took comfort in the quiet moments with Vincent, the late-night talks, the quiet walks through the city, the simple yet profound connection they had built. Together, they began to build a life that was theirs and theirs alone. The judgment from others faded into the background as they made their own rules, refusing to let the world define their relationship. Vincent and Lily were writing their own story now, one where love and authenticity came first. And that was the only story that truly mattered. As Lily walked alongside Vincent, no longer afraid of what others thought, she realized something essential. She didn't need to be someone else to be loved. She didn't need to fit anyone's mold. She was enough, just as she was. And with Vincent by her side, she knew that no matter how hard the world tried to tear them apart, they would always have each other. The unseen strength. The months that followed became a turning point in both Vincent and Lily's relationship. They had learned to weather the storm of media scrutiny, societal expectations, and even Vincent's family's doubts. But there was one thing neither of them had anticipated: the strength they would find within themselves, the power they could unlock when they truly chose to stand together. Lily began to see herself differently. No longer the girl from a small town trying to fit into a world she didn't belong to. She realized she was already a part of that world, not because of who she was with, but because of who she had become. She wasn't just Vincent's girlfriend. She was her own person, someone who had earned the right to be there by simply choosing to be authentic and true to herself. She didn't need validation from anyone else. She had earned her place, not by conforming to the expectations of others, but by standing firm in the face of everything that tried to tear her down. The tabloids, the whispers, the raised eyebrows, they didn't define her. She did. The media frenzy eventually died down, though not without leaving its mark. But through it all, Lily learned how to be resilient, how to move through life with grace, even when the world was watching. And it wasn't just Vincent who supported her. She had discovered that she was capable of standing up for herself, of silencing the doubts, of telling the world, and more importantly, telling herself that she was worthy. One evening, as the city lights flickered outside their apartment window, Vincent looked at Lily with admiration. He had seen her grow over the months, watched as she transformed from someone unsure of her place into someone who commanded respect. He couldn't have been more proud of her. But more than that, he had fallen deeper in love with her, not just for her beauty or kindness, but for the strength she now carried. "You know, you're more incredible than I could have ever imagined," Vincent said, his voice filled with awe as he took a step closer to her. Lily looked up at him, a soft smile playing on her lips. "I think I'm finally starting to believe that," she replied. "I've come a long way, haven't I?" Vincent reached out, pulling her into his arms. "You've always been incredible. I just think you finally realized it for yourself." The words felt like a weight lifted off her shoulders. For so long, she had relied on others' opinions to define her worth. But now, with Vincent, she felt free. Free from the constant need for approval. Free from the suffocating expectations of what she should be or where she should belong. "I still can't believe how far we've come," she said softly, her fingers tracing the lines of his hand. "There were so many times I doubted this, doubted myself." Vincent brushed a strand of hair away from her face, his eyes soft. "We both did, but we're here now, and that's all that matters." Their relationship had been tested, torn apart by the pressures of society, but it had also been strengthened. What Vincent had given her wasn't just love, it was the permission to be herself, the strength to be her own person, no matter the noise around them. It wasn't the luxurious dinners or expensive gifts that meant the most to Lily. It was the quiet moments like this one, where they stood side by side, knowing that they could face whatever came next. As the weeks turned into months, Lily's confidence grew. She no longer shied away from being in the spotlight with Vincent. When they attended events, she held her head high, proud of who she was and the life she had chosen. She had found her place not in the world that others expected her to be in, but in the world she had created with Vincent. But even with this newfound strength, their journey wasn't without its difficulties. One evening, after a particularly high-profile gala, Vincent sat in their apartment, staring out of the window at the city below. Lily watched him, her curiosity piqued by his silence. "What's on your mind?" she asked gently, sitting beside him. Vincent didn't answer immediately. He was lost in thought, his fingers drumming against the edge of the table. Finally, he spoke. "I've been thinking a lot about what we've been through, what we're still going through. The world is always going to judge us, Lily. It's never going to stop. I don't know if it's fair to put you through this." Lily's heart tightened as she reached for his hand. "Vincent, we've already proven that we can handle this. Together. Yes, it's hard, and yes, people will always have something to say. But that doesn't change the way I feel about you, or the way you feel about me." He turned to face her, his gaze filled with gratitude. "I know. I just want to protect you from it all. But I know that I can't shield you forever." Lily smiled softly, brushing his cheek with her fingertips. "You don't have to protect me, Vincent. You've already given me everything I need. And I'm not afraid anymore. We're stronger than anything that comes our way." Vincent's eyes softened, and he pulled her closer, his embrace a promise. "I'm so lucky to have you." "And I'm lucky to have you," she replied, her voice filled with conviction. "This isn't just about us facing the world. It's about the world seeing us for who we are, and we're not going anywhere." They held each other in the stillness of the night, the city lights below shimmering like stars. They had come so far, faced every challenge, and emerged stronger than ever. And as they stood together, nothing in the world seemed impossible anymore. In that moment, Lily realized that the real strength didn't come from avoiding the difficulties of life. It came from facing them head-on, from trusting in the love they shared, and from believing in herself. She was enough just as she was, and together, they could face whatever the future had in store. As Vincent kissed her forehead softly, Lily closed her eyes, her heart at peace. They had found their way, not by fitting into the world, but by creating their own. And in the warmth of his embrace, she knew they would continue to walk this journey together, no matter what the world thought. Together, they were unstoppable. The unexpected choice. Lily and Vincent had settled into a life that was uniquely their own. They had created a bubble, a world that, while touched by the external pressures of fame, wealth, and expectation, was theirs to shape. Their love, though tested by the relentless scrutiny, had proven to be stronger than anything they had imagined. Vincent had become her anchor, and Lily had become his safe haven. Together, they had weathered the storm, and now it seemed like nothing could pull them apart. But, as with any fairy tale, there came a point when the perfect world they had built would inevitably face an obstacle, one that would shake them both to their core. It wasn't the media, nor was it Vincent's family. It wasn't even the endless expectations of their respective worlds. No, it was a quiet, personal choice that would force both of them to re-examine everything they had worked for, everything they had built together. It started on a rainy evening in the fall, the kind of evening where the world feels soft, almost suspended in time. They had just returned from a trip to the countryside, a getaway that had been meant to bring them peace after a particularly stressful few months. They had walked along the quiet streets, explored hidden corners of small towns, and enjoyed a slower, more intimate pace of life. It had been their respite, their way of disconnecting from the world and reconnecting with each other. As they settled back into their penthouse, Lily felt a sense of unease settle in her chest. She couldn't explain it at first. It wasn't the usual anxiety from the pressure of public attention or the weight of expectations. This was different. She sat down on the couch, her mind racing with thoughts that wouldn't quiet. Vincent noticed immediately, his perceptiveness never failing to alert him when something was wrong. He looked at her, concerned. "What's on your mind?" Lily hesitated, trying to find the right words. Finally, she spoke, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I've been thinking a lot, Vincent, about us, about everything we've been through." Vincent sat next to her, taking her hand in his. "We've been through a lot, but we're here, right? Together." She nodded, but her heart still felt heavy. "Yes, we're together. And that's what I'm afraid of." Vincent frowned, trying to understand. Afraid of what? Lily drew a breath, feeling the weight of the question she was about to ask. What happens if we keep going like this? If we keep living in this bubble, where it's just you and me and we're able to ignore the rest of the world? What happens when we have to face the bigger decisions, the ones that affect not just us, but everything we've built? Vincent's brow furrowed, but he didn't say anything right away. He just watched her, his gaze steady and unwavering. I'm afraid, Vincent, she continued, that the longer we stay in this bubble, the harder it's going to be to face what's real. The world doesn't care about what we've built. They see us as a story, as something they can tear down. And I've been so focused on protecting us, on making sure we have this life, that I haven't stopped to think about what we're sacrificing. Vincent's heart tightened as he heard the fear in her voice. He had always known that their love would come with its challenges, but this was different. This wasn't just about the media or their families, it was about their future. Lily's words hung in the air, and for the first time, he realized the weight of her sacrifice, the emotional toll it had taken on her to stand by his side in the face of everything. What are you saying? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lily took a deep breath. I'm saying that maybe we need to take a step back. Maybe it's time we decide if we can really make this work. If we can live in both of our worlds and still be true to who we are, or if we're just trying to fit ourselves into a narrative that was never meant to be ours. Vincent's hand tightened around hers, and his mind raced. He couldn't imagine his life without her. He loved her more than he had ever loved anything or anyone, but the truth in her words struck him deep. She had been giving everything for him, for them, and he hadn't fully realized the burden it had placed on her. Lily, I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose us, he said, his voice filled with desperation. But I also don't want to keep dragging you into a life that feels like it's not yours. She looked at him, her eyes filled with both love and sorrow. I'm not saying we should end things, Vincent. I need to know if we can find a way to make it work, to build something real, outside of the pressure, outside of the expectations, something that belongs to us, and only us. The silence between them was deafening. Both of them were grappling with the weight of the decision at hand. Lily's heart felt torn. She loved Vincent more than she had ever loved anyone, but she also needed to preserve herself, her sense of identity. She couldn't be swept away in his world, no matter how much she cared for him. Vincent finally spoke, his voice low but steady. I hear you, Lily. I get it now. I've been so focused on our future together that I didn't see what you were sacrificing. I didn't realize that in trying to keep us safe, I might have been pushing you away. I don't want you to lose yourself in this. You're not just my girlfriend, you're you. And I need to make sure that we build a life that honors who we both are. Lily felt a tear slip down her cheek as she looked at him. I need you to understand, Vincent. I need to feel like I have a voice, that I'm not just fitting into your world. I need to have my own place in it too. Vincent wiped away her tear gently. I understand, Lily, and I'm willing to fight for that. I'm willing to fight for us, but we have to be honest with each other. No more hiding, no more pretending. We have to find a way to make this work, where we both feel like we're living the life we want. Lily nodded, the weight in her chest starting to lift. She realized then that the choice wasn't just about their future together, it was about finding balance, making sure that their love didn't come at the cost of who they were as individuals. They had always been strong together, but they needed to be strong on their own too. We'll figure it out, she whispered, her voice filled with quiet resolve. Vincent pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. We will, together. And as they stood there, in the quiet of their apartment, Lily finally felt a sense of peace. The road ahead would be complicated, but with Vincent by her side, she knew they could build something real, something that belonged to them, not to anyone else. They didn't have all the answers yet, but they were finally ready to face the future with open eyes together. The strength of the choice. After their conversation that night, Vincent and Lily slowly began to carve out a new path for themselves. The decision they faced was not easy, but it was necessary. They both understood that love alone could not sustain them in the world they were trying to build. The balance between their individual lives and their shared future had to be carefully nurtured. It wasn't just about the grand gestures or the extravagant trips. It was about respect, trust, and the ability to see each other as equals, not just in love, but in everything that made them who they were. The days after that pivotal moment were filled with deep reflection. They spent time talking, openly and honestly, about their fears and desires, about what they needed from each other, and about how they wanted to shape their lives moving forward. It was a slower pace than they were used to, but in that stillness, they found clarity. For Lily, the change was more profound than she had anticipated. It wasn't just about Vincent, though. Of course, her love for him was a crucial part of it. It was about herself. She had spent so much of her life trying to meet other people's expectations, trying to find a place where she could fit in, that she had lost sight of who she was. But now, as she worked through the challenges with Vincent, she was rediscovering the woman she had always been, the woman who didn't need to be validated by society, by her friends, or by Vincent's family, the woman who could stand tall, speak her truth, and choose her path. Vincent, too, was grappling with his own realizations. He had always been the one in control of his world, the one who made the decisions, the one who built his empire from the ground up. But he had never stopped to truly understand what it meant for Lily to be part of his world. He had assumed that as long as he loved her and was there for her, she would be okay. But he realized that love wasn't enough. It was about giving her the space to be herself, to thrive in the world they created together, without losing sight of what made her unique. One afternoon, as they sat in their living room talking through their plans for the future, Vincent turned to Lily, his eyes filled with a mix of admiration and resolve. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice steady, "about what you said about wanting more than just this world we've been living in. You're right. We've been so caught up in this bubble that we've lost sight of the bigger picture, and I want to change that." Lily looked at him, her heart swelling at his words. "I think we both do," she replied softly. "But it's not just about escaping the world we live in. It's about creating a space where we can be ourselves together, but also as individuals. We can still have a life full of love and excitement, but it has to be one that's rooted in who we really are, not who the world expects us to be." Vincent nodded thoughtfully. "Exactly. And I want to be the kind of partner who supports that, who encourages you to grow and be your best self without feeling like you have to lose part of yourself in the process." Lily smiled, the warmth of his words wrapping around her like a blanket. "And I want to be there for you the same way. I don't want to just be your girlfriend or your girlfriend of the billionaire. I want to be me, with you, the woman who challenges you, who supports you, who isn't afraid to speak her mind and live her own life alongside yours." Vincent reached for her hand, holding it gently. "You've always been that person to me, Lily, and I promise you, I'm never going to ask you to be anything other than who you are. We're in this together, and together, we'll find a way to make it work." The sincerity in his voice made her heart flutter. It wasn't just about the promises they made in that moment. It was about the actions they would take moving forward. Their journey wasn't going to be without its bumps, they both knew that. But the foundation they were building, the trust and the understanding they shared, would see them through whatever came next. Over the next few months, Vincent and Lily began to live their lives in a way that felt more authentic. They still had to navigate the challenges of being in the public eye, but they did so with a renewed sense of purpose. They took breaks when they needed them, spent time with their closest friends, and kept their love for each other at the center of everything. The pressure from the media and from their families never fully disappeared, but they stopped letting it dictate their choices. They made their own decisions, choosing to live their lives by their own rules. One afternoon, as they walked hand in hand through a park they had visited early in their relationship, Lily stopped and turned to Vincent. Do you ever think about what life would be like if we had just walked away from all of this? She asked, a playful smile tugging at the corners of her lips. Vincent laughed, his grip tightening on her hand. Sometimes. But honestly, I don't think I would ever want to change anything. Everything we've been through has led us to this point, and I wouldn't give up a single moment of it because we're here now, and we're stronger than ever. Lily smiled, her heart full. She had been so afraid of the unknown, of stepping into a life that didn't fit her. But now, with Vincent by her side, she had found the strength to create a life that was uniquely theirs, one built on trust, love, and authenticity. I don't think I would change anything either, she said softly. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be with you. Vincent kissed her forehead, a soft promise in his eyes. And I'll always be right here, Lily, with you, no matter what. And in that moment, standing together in the middle of the park with the world bustling around them, they knew that no matter where life took them, they had each other. They had chosen love, and they had chosen to face the world together. It wasn't always easy, but it was real. And that was enough. The road ahead. Lily and Vincent's relationship had been through more than its fair share of trials, but through each challenge, they had come out stronger. Their journey hadn't been easy, and there were still moments when the weight of expectations and societal pressures threatened to pull them apart. But each time, they chose to face it together, reminding themselves that love, true, unshakable love, was the foundation of everything they had built. As the months passed, the once constant scrutiny from the outside world began to fade into the background. They had learned to live with the noise, to tune it out, and focus on the quiet moments that truly mattered. Vincent's business continued to thrive, his empire expanding in ways he had never imagined. Lily, too, had found her own voice in their world, no longer the girl trying to find her place, but a confident woman who stood beside Vincent, not as his accessory, but as his equal. One evening, Vincent and Lily found themselves back in the same park where they had shared one of their first intimate conversations. It was late, and the park was almost empty, the quietness of the night enveloping them in a peaceful solitude. They walked hand in hand, just as they had done countless times before, but tonight felt different. There was an unspoken understanding between them that they had reached a new chapter in their lives. This place always reminds me of how far we've come, Lily said, her voice soft, yet filled with the weight of the words. Vincent nodded, his eyes never leaving her. I know. I still remember the first time we walked here together, how unsure we both were. I didn't know what would happen between us, but I knew something was different, something real. Lily smiled, looking up at him. And now, do you think that's still true? Vincent's smile grew, and he stopped walking, turning to face her fully. Yes, more than ever. What we have is real, Lily. There's nothing in this world that could change that. Lily's heart swelled at his words. She had spent so long questioning her worth, wondering if she truly belonged with someone like Vincent. But now, after everything they had been through, she knew the answer. She had always belonged, not because of who Vincent was, but because of who they were together. I've never felt more at home than I do when I'm with you, she whispered, her voice steady but filled with emotion. Vincent reached for her hand, holding it gently. And you always will be. This is your home, Lily. Not just in my world, but in your own. We've created something here, something that's ours, and nothing or no one will ever take that from us. They stood there in the park, under the soft glow of the streetlights, the city buzzing in the distance, but they were in their own little bubble. The world may have its expectations, its judgments, but for Vincent and Lily, that night was proof that they had carved out a life that was uniquely theirs. As they walked back toward the car, Vincent squeezed Lily's hand, a playful glint in his eyes. You know, I've been thinking about something. Lily raised an eyebrow, her curiosity piqued. What's that? Vincent stopped once again, turning to face her. We've spent so much time facing the world together, but now it's time to start thinking about us. Not just surviving, but thriving. I want us to build something that's ours, without the noise of the outside world constantly intruding. Lily looked at him, her heart racing with anticipation. What do you mean? I've been thinking about the future, about what comes next for us. And I want to make sure that we're not just living in the moment, but planning for the life we want to create, together. No more second guessing. I want us to be fully in this world, but also outside of it, on our own terms. Lily's breath caught in her throat as the weight of his words sank in. They had already fought so many battles together, but now Vincent was speaking about something even bigger, a future that wasn't just defined by their past struggles, but by the life they chose to build moving forward. I think I know what you mean, she said, her voice filled with a mix of hope and excitement. You're talking about taking the next step, building something that's beyond what we've already done. Vincent smiled, the warmth of it filling her heart. Exactly. We've faced so many challenges together, but now I want us to take control of our own future. No more letting the outside world dictate who we are or where we go. We get to decide what happens next. Lily nodded, her eyes shining with determination. Let's do it. Let's build a future where we're both the architects of our lives, together. And in that moment, everything clicked into place. The years of questioning, the fears, the doubts, those were all behind them now. What they had was real, and it was only just beginning. They had chosen each other, over and over again, and now it was time to take the next step into a future that was theirs to create. The road ahead was still uncertain, but Lily no longer felt afraid of it. She had Vincent by her side, and together they had everything they needed to build a life that was their own. They had proven that love could survive the hardest of trials, and now they were ready to take on whatever the future held. As they got into the car and drove off into the night, Vincent looked over at Lily, his hand resting on her leg, a sense of peace settling between them. We've made it, haven't we? Lily smiled, her heart full. We have. And we're just getting started. They didn't need to know all the answers. They didn't need to have everything figured out. What mattered was that they were in this together, building something that was uniquely their own, and nothing in the world could take that away from them. And as they drove through the city streets, Vincent and Lily knew that, no matter what came next, they would face it hand in hand. One of the key lessons from this story is the power of authenticity and self-worth in relationships. It's easy to get caught up in the expectations of others, whether from society, family, or even our partners. But true fulfillment comes from embracing who we really are. In this story, Lily's journey of realizing her worth beyond the opinions of others is a reminder to all of us that we don't need external validation to feel whole. Relationships thrive when both individuals are able to stand firmly in their own identities, supporting each other's growth without losing sight of their own. This lesson applies not only in romantic relationships, but in every aspect of life. The pressure to fit into molds, whether in our careers, friendships, or even personal aspirations, can be overwhelming. However, when we learn to trust in our own strengths, we can create lives that are genuine, fulfilling, and true to who we are. At the end of the day, the key to overcoming doubt and insecurity is to stop seeking approval from the world and start validating ourselves. When we do, we allow ourselves to embrace the love, success, and happiness that is meant for us on our own terms. In the journey of life, authenticity is the foundation of true connection, and the courage to stay true to ourselves is the key to lasting peace and fulfillment. And just like that, we find ourselves at the end of an incredible journey. It wasn't just about the money, the empire, or the luxury. It was about the courage to keep going when everything seemed impossible. The moments of doubt, the fears, and the sacrifices all led to something far greater than just success. It led to a life filled with purpose, resilience, and most importantly, the understanding that the real wealth lies in the ability to choose our own path. If there's one thing we can take from today's story, it's that no matter how difficult life gets, there's always a chance to start again, to find your footing, and to rise higher than you ever thought possible. It's about believing in yourself, even when no one else does, and knowing that every setback is just a setup for a comeback. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this story inspired you as much as it inspired me. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, subscribe to Stories TH, and share with your friends. And tell me where you're tuning in from and what time it is in your corner of the world. I love reading your comments. Take a deep breath, relax, and remember you have the power to shape your own future, just like the people in the stories we share. Until next time, my friends.